And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, today we're taking a look at Global Mogul from Mayfair Games. I feel like saying that, Global Mogul, Global Mogul, Global. It's a fun name to say, I don't know why. This is a straighten up economic game. The heady days of global finance. Money and deals flow like water. This is a game for 1 to 4 players. You can play it by yourself. I will not be reviewing that because I don't normally play solitaire games, but I did look it over. And the rules for 2 players are also somewhat different, but I'm going to be looking at it as from a 4-player perspective or 3-player perspective of an economic game. It is an economic game. Let me show you. There's a lot of different pieces in this game. There's going to be one board that's placed in the middle of the table. This is the resource market, and at the beginning of the game, you're going to put a certain number of tokens on this market that players will be able to buy from. It tells you how many are available in each one. Like, for example, you put 4 of these blue-collar workers here, you'll put 4 lumber here, etc., etc. You also keep track of the main turns of the game, and then it tells you a few other things. Now, this is for the base game, and this is for a 4-player game. There's different boards based on a number of players, whether you're playing the base or the standard game. Each player is going to have a player board. You can see here, this is a base game, a player display. And on a turn, you have a whole pile of agents that are sitting right here that you'll be using. And over here, you have some extra agents. You start with 7 of them over here. And what you're going to be doing each turn is one player is going to go first, and the players who go 2nd through 5th at the beginning of the game will get some extra resources to make up for that. But you'll take one of these actions and place it here, and wherever you place it, that's the action you take. And then you keep doing that, but you can never take the same action twice on a turn. So the different actions that you take will give you different benefits. Here is resource production, and I'll talk about that in just a moment after we talk about some of the actions. Now, some of the actions are very simple. We have the take a government grant. If you go there, the government gives you 10 bucks, I guess 10 million bucks, and you'll take one of these extra agents and move it over. You can also go here to the conduct market research and add 2 of these guys over here. The first 2 here are 2 of the most important. That's investing in open markets and emerging markets. At the beginning of the game, you'll have 5 markets in the open markets and 5 in the emerging. Anytime someone invests in an emerging market, at the end of a turn, it will move down into the open markets. So as the game progresses, there will be more and more. Also, the markets, everything in this game, there's A and B decks, and so for the first half of the game, you're using different cards than the second half. Now, when you invest in a market, let's say you decide to invest here in France. You can pick where you're going to invest. You can invest into up to 2 different markets. So I could invest in maybe France and the United States, but I could put up to 3 markers out total, 3 of my agents, and I can't put 2 in one and 2 in another. I could basically say I could put 1 here and 1 here. I could put 2 here and 1 here. I could put 3 here. Now, when you put these in here, you will put them in the market that you have, and you will pay the cost. So if I, for example, put 3 markers here, it would cost me $90 million. But it would give me 1 blue-collar resource, 1 wood resource, and 1 white-collar worker resource. Now, a couple things. When you take control of these markets, once you have 2 there, and you have more than everybody else, you put one of your discs there to show that you control it. You'll have, for example, whoever controls this one has 4 victory points. If there's someone else, let's say there was 2 markers here, then that person would get the 2 victory points. If it's a tie, it would actually go to the person farther to the right. So actually, if someone put 2 markers there, they would be in 4, and the blue player would go down to 2. But you can pick and choose where you want to put your markers based on the resources that you want to get. You will get those resources, or at least adjust those resources immediately. Emerging markets, you won't adjust them immediately, but at the end of a turn, like I said, they'll move down. Whoever controls the most markets in each region will also get points at the end of the game for controlling that region. So that's something you also need to keep mind of. As you get these resources, you mark here on your board how many you get. For example, let's say I have 2 of the technology resource. Well, then I'll put produce 2 there. And then later on, I get another one, so I'll put a produce 3 there. And then maybe I'll get a produce 1 gold, and I'm eventually producing 4 of these and 1 of these. And so you have these markers. Each player has a set of markers to keep track. Another action that you can take is the produce resources track, in which case you will get resources, the different types of resources that match however many you are producing at any given point in time. Now, you are producing resources because you want to fulfill contracts. One of the options you can do is take a private contract. Another one you can do is take a public contracts. Now, there's some differences. The private contracts are usually give you more money, although fewer victory points. Maybe the same victory points. I haven't really studied the difference in victory points. But a government contract, when you take a government contract, it will automatically give you $10 for every other government contract that you've already completed. When you take a contract, you have to put one of your agents on it like this, and you put it in front of you. And once you have those resources, then you can take the agent off, turn it face down, and you'll get the payout, in this case, $30 million. And at the end of the game, you'll get 3 victory points. So for this one, for example, I need 1 white-collar worker, 1 precious metals, 1 gold, and 2 technology. So I have to produce those resources. There's no limit to the number of contracts that you can have, but you will lose points for the ones that you don't complete at the end of the game. So you might need to go to the resource market to get the resources you don't need. When you take this action, going to the resource market, you can sell up to 5 resources, and you sell them for half of whatever the current price is. So for example, the base price of gold is 40, so if there's no gold here in the thing, then I'm selling gold for 20 million each, and etc. Then you can buy 5 for their current price. So if I want to buy gold, it would cost me 40 each. However, there's discounted resources here. So there's two discounted for $20 each. There's 2 discounted for $30 each. You can buy these, but once they're gone, they're gone. So sometimes getting to the market quickly to buy some of these discount resources is a good idea. You'll also notice that there's a venture capital chart over here, and this is another way to get money. In fact, you'll likely have to do this at the beginning of the game. You place one of your agents there to get 20 million, and then the next player maybe would place one there to get 20 million. I say, I need 30 more million. You can pay these back at any time, and you have to pay an extra 10 back. And the reason you want to do that is because you only have so many agents. They're going to be put into markets, they're going to be put on contracts, they're going to be put in other places, they're going to be put here. And if you don't have enough agents, you won't be able to do anything else. You need to get those agents back. Also, whoever has the fewest here at the end of the game is going to get victory points. Finally, there are different companies over here that you can buy. These companies have a straight-up price for them, and they're also worth a certain number of victory points, and they give you a special ability. For example, this one here, you can buy 3 lumber for $10 each turn without taking a resource market action. This one gives you 10 extra dollars whenever you complete a gold contract. This one here gives you 1 agent for free every turn. This one here, when you take private contracts, you can take 2 as long as one of them's oil. Here, whenever you do the emerging markets, you can look at the top card in the deck and add it to the available emerging markets. Also, this one here, whenever you complete a contract, it gives you a free blue-collar worker, period. So that's a special credit. And you have to put an agent on these again to show that it's yours and that it's being used. And again, like I said, you're going to have agents all over the board. At the end of the game, whoever has the most points is the winner. You get points from the different contracts you fulfilled, for the markets that you control, for the overall region markets you control, for companies that you own, and I think every $10 is also an extra, or every $50 is an extra point at the end of the game. And so you add up the points, whoever has the most points is the winner. In the standard game, there's a few changes. You start with only 3 actions, but you can get more. The first time you complete a private contract, a public contract, and control a market, you get an extra action. Many of the actions on the board, instead of you just taking them, you have to auction them off. So there is much more, you can't just grab something and take it. And there's some other things that you can do about who goes first next turn and so on and so forth. It adds a little bit more complexity, especially with the auctions. But other than that, plays pretty close to the same. All right, well, Global Mogul. First of all, I have to say, I'm not a big fan of these components. They look so bland. They look like somebody cut them out and put them on the board. Now, I did hear that part of the reason the components look like this were because the game had so many pieces all over the board, and this simplistic look would help it not to be confusing. And that's true. It wasn't confusing. I just thought maybe they could have put a little bit more effort into the graphic design to make it look nice and not confusing. Because right now it just looks very stark. But I'm guessing the people who like this sort of game aren't going to worry about that very much. Now, before I get into the whole thing, I will say that I very much enjoyed it. I like economic games, and this one is a doozy. One of the things I really enjoyed about this was there are so many options. You want to get those contracts. You want to get the contracts before other people, but you want to get into those markets, and you want to grab those businesses, and you have to, at the same time, keep an eye on your money flow and the income and outcome, and I like all that. You know, I think it's interesting. You can try to do lots of governmental contracts. You can make sure you get a company in return, have all those special abilities, and the victory points they provide. You can try to control the markets out there. It's neat how all that works together, and the theme is there to some degree. I mean, the Middle East, you'll get more oil from that region, and so there's the different regions produce their sorts of resources. But at the end of the day, the theme was going in my head, and I'm just thinking, I'm moving this here to get there, here to get here, to make money. Now, this is a game where making money isn't that difficult. You're not sitting there going broke all the time, but at the same time, you're sitting there trying to figure out how to get points, and you're always worried about the other person having a jump on you, placing out there, taking that contract one turn before you did. So I'll take the contract first, but then I might not get the resources I need. Maybe I need to get to the market first. This is neat. I like that. I wouldn't call it a worker placement game. I mean, you are placing people in the spots, but it's more of an action selection game, but you can only take each action once per round, and that's neat too. Why would you ever invest in emerging markets? Well, because you can only invest in the open markets once a turn, so I'll invest in the emerging markets the other time, which basically lets me invest in the markets twice. But which emerging markets? So I don't know. I think that's neat. Now, for the base game versus standard game, I think the base game, normally when I play these games, I say base game, forget that. We're going to start with the standard game. But after going over these rules, I said, standard game, we're going to start with the base game. And you know what? Now, after playing both, I'm telling you, the base game is where it's at. I really like it. It's a heavy, chunky, interesting economic game. I don't need auctions to make that interesting. I already thought it was fun. Auctions are a very risky proposition, I think, in games to begin with, because they require players to know very well what's going on so that they can bid at the right points in the right places. There's already so many other things going on in this base game that I didn't think that the addition of auctions and the other little rules that the standard game added were that critical. So when I play this again, it's only going to be on the base game. But as it stands, I think it's a good one. It's certainly not going to appeal to everybody. It's a straighten-up economic game. It's going to be there. It's going to be one that people really enjoy. If you like games like Acquire, but thought maybe Acquire was too simple. There's not a lot of games, I think, that are straight-up economic games that aren't also train games. Okay? I like train games, I guess, but it seems like most of our economics are... This is just straight-up global trading, and I think that's neat. There's lots of options. The way the decks are shuffled, you never know what combination of markets and contracts and companies are going to come out. So I think very highly of this. Now, I would think even higher if the component quality was better and if I had a larger audience to play with, because the people who like this sort of game are not as many as the people who like, for example, Ticket to Ride, for say. This is a very specific group. But if you like heavy economic games, you certainly have got to try this one out. It is fascinating.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door!
Yeah.